entirely now.
So welcome. It's lovely to have everybody here. My name is Sarah Wallach, and my partner in crime is Yvette, who's sitting on that chair over there. We are both the co-chairs of the Community Education Committee for WDC, and it's been a really fun year so far. We've had an event on immigration and refugees in October, another one on MCPS and boundary analysis, and this is the third of the fall. So it's next year we're planning to have one in January around climate change. So keep an eye out for our events. We'd love to have members come, and we change them around. We have some in the evenings and some on the weekends and some weekday mornings. So hopefully it's a time that you can make one of them. In any case, it's lovely to be here. The two people part of the WDC who really helped put this together is Fran and Ricky, so I want to really thank you. And I also want to thank Scott for doing everything to sort of make this happen, which is getting the presentation up, helping us with the video. It takes a team effort to put these together, and I really appreciate everyone's contribution to the event today. With that, I want to turn it over to Ricky, who's going to introduce our presenters today. So Ricky, please come on and join us.
Needless to say, this is an absolute pleasure to welcome Robyn and Marilee to WDC to speak about a topic near and dear to their hearts, and really that should be near and dear to all our hearts, and that is preparing for the expected and unexpected in life. Both Robyn and Marilee have had previous careers in serving others. Robyn in the Montgomery County Public Schools for many years as a teacher, administrator. She started an after-school program for at-risk youth, and the list goes on and on. Marilee has had a storied career, and most recently helped run the overseas DoD schools, or the DoD schools both overseas and in the United States, as well as schools for Native American children in the reservations and in public lands here in the United States. So in addition to all of that, they are incredibly generous with their time, very caring friends, and they got this idea, well, I think they'll tell you how they got this idea. Really, personal experience as a great teacher. And both Robyn and Marilee were aware of people in their lives, very close to them, who've experienced unforeseen tragedies that left them not only bereft and in grief, but completely at a loss as to how then to start putting together someone else's life that they have to be responsible for, or their own life, or a spouse, or so they started to put together this business. But really what they do more than that, and the real reason they're here, and they speak publicly all over to various groups, is to help people start thinking about this. And it's never too early to start planning and thinking about how to prepare your life and your personal documents and all of that so that someone else can access them, or you can access them when you need them. I have two little thoughts that came to mind when I was thinking about what Robyn and Marilee do. And one is, it's an old proverb, but one that President John Kennedy often cited, and that is that the best time to fix a leaky roof is when the sun is shining. And that's why we are all here, because hopefully the sun is shining for us and all those we know and love, and we need to start preparing for the leaky roof. And the other is that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. So with that, I will give you two incredibly wonderful and loving and giving and generous and thoughtful friends, Robyn and Marilee.
Thank you. I don't know, Marilee. I don't think we have anything else to say. We are really delighted to be here with all of you today. And I didn't even say this to Marilee, but at 5:45 this morning, I said to my husband, "So, what do you think I should say to them?" He said, "These are smart women. You don't need to say much. They are all here because they know this is something that's really critical and important." But I want to start off by giving you a little story. Being an educator for 42 years, you have to kind of grab your group right off the bat, even though you don't need much grabbing. I have a very good friend, Marilee, I have a very good friend whose husband unexpectedly got liver cancer. And with that, they had time and resources to really put their life together so that she would be prepared when the his expiration date came to due. So this was a topic that was near and dear to my heart because my mother was a widow at 42 and was always on my case of you need to be involved, you need to be invested, you need to take control. And I did and I didn't. I was busy raising a family, children. My husband had more interest, which is pretty commonplace in many homes. And so a couple months after he passed away, I said to her, so did you really feel like you were prepared and everything, when you were on top of it? It was one less thing that you had to really concern yourself with and that really caused you a lot of angst. And she said to me, well, Robyn, to be honest with you, yes and no. And I was like, what do you mean yes and no? You had the time, you had the resources, you're a smart, savvy woman. And she said, it's amazing how much you really need to have put together to be organized. I said, well, give me one example. She said, beneficiaries. I didn't have hard copies of beneficiaries. And I thought to myself, I don't have hard copies of beneficiaries. I don't even remember the last time I checked who the beneficiaries were, probably long before I was even married. So this became a dialogue and a conversation between Marilee and myself and other friends as well. And we realized that it was time to really get smart, take control, get knowledgeable, and kind of go through our own personal journey to find out what did it really mean to be organized. And so we spent several years researching this topic of what it meant to be organized. And we call our presentation Life Ready Fitness. When you think about being fit, you're thinking about holistically. Are you able to really charge forward and do the things that you need to do on a regular basis? And so these are the questions that we want to ask you today. Number one, are you ready for the rest of your life, or are you the single point of failure? I was the single point of failure. If something had happened to my spouse, it would have been a disaster. Long, before I got on the train to knowledge and empowerment. Did I have what I needed? Did I know where it was? Was it secure? Could it easily be updated? Was I able to share the information that I needed with persons? Maybe it's a family member, a loved one, maybe it's someone else. And is it organized in a way that people understand it? I cannot tell you how many conversations Marilee and I have had with various people where the intention is to have all this done so that it's transparent, it's shareable, but we're all busy. We have very busy lives, and this would not be my priority. I'd much rather go for a run, or go out to dinner with friends, or go to a movie. But again, this is something critical that you need to make time for. So, today's goals. How to be life ready fit, the essential decisions and information and legal documents you need, the steps to getting your personal estate in order, how do you select the right organizational system? I will tell you that Marilee and I had just retired. Marilee actually was the head of the DoD school system. And we looked for something to kind of hang, a framework to hang the information that we needed on. And it seemed like everything was either geared toward end of life or geared toward financial life. And I'm not saying those are not two critical, topics, but we found out that life was more than that. Although people tend to focus on one or the other, holistically, there's so much more, and we'll get into that. And so critical conversations, you and I were just talking, people don't necessarily want to address these topics. They don't find the time, it's not a priority. They think it's something they need to do, their intentions are always good, but they don't kind of get around to doing it. But we wanted something that created the conversations so that you talk about the things that are really critically important to you and your loved ones. And also, how do you get started? I mean, it's like you have all this information, which has been your life. How do I take all this life and kind of drill it down to what's essential and what's critically important? And then we're going to ask you, what are some questions that you had on your mind, questions that maybe hadn't occurred to you, and also questions that your loved ones might have. Okay, being educators, we love graphics, and what we talk about in terms of this life-ready fitness is a wheel. And we want to make sure our wheel has plenty of air in it, it's inflated. We don't want it deflated. And just like if you take your life and you put it in sections, your physical, your spiritual, your environmental, your intellectual, all these pieces have to fit together, and you have to have the right kind of coping skills so that one is out of sorts, it all kind of comes back and balances itself. For instance, I've been sick with a miserable cold for 2 weeks, but I have the coping skills in place so that my tire, my wheel becomes set and ready to go. I can drive and do the things I need to do. And so we think about the environment in terms of holistically our whole life. And I'm going to turn this over to Marilee. And you want to go from here, Marilee?
I will, thank you very
Great.
much. This slide talks about the reasons why we should get organized, and it seems apparent because Robyn teed up a few for us. But there's actually been some great research out there that talks about the impact on our physical well-being when our life is not organized, when we are stressed out, particularly in a time of crisis, about trying to find something, or very simply, even if we're trying to find the birth certificate so that we can get our ID cards on our driver's license. Where are these things? In fact, there's an interesting statistic out there that says that we spend 2 weeks a year finding things. So if you
Is that all?
at least 2 weeks a year, it's 14 days, the equivalent of 14 days finding stuff. Do you know what is the most commonly lost item?
Keys.
Keys, phone,
Glasses.
glasses. Glasses are the most commonly found. You would do that. Okay, so, and all of that, unknowingly, perhaps up to us to some extent, creates stress in our life. We also found that 9 out of 10 of us are going to need a caregiver in our life. And so when we talk about getting organized, yes, it is for ourselves, and yes, it is for our loved ones, but there's another component to our lives. Someday, someone will be caring for us. And do they have the capability and the capacity to do what needs to be done? Very simply stated, somebody comes into the home, they're caring for your loved one while you are not there, the heat goes out, who do they call? You know, do they have the resources available? Have you given them the resources that they need to take care of the home when you were not there? Very simple ideas and simple concepts. And certainly we want to do this because we don't want to be a burden to somebody else. There is a theory that says, oh, well, you know, I'll just let somebody else take care of it. I think that's what Prince had in mind when he decided not to have a will. But the reality of that is that our children and our loved ones and whomever is going to be caring for us create not only a tremendous burden in their lives, but a tremendous cost in trying to get lawyers, accountants, and other folks involved as wills have to be probated or information has to be found. Sadly, this burden of getting organized and being prepared falls largely on women. 58% of us leave our crucial decisions to our spouses. And that is a current statistic. We take a back seat financially. Robyn and I talked, openly about our career years. I mean, if I didn't even know we had a life insurance policy that was going to expire. Listen, let me tell you how bad it was when we went to start this company. My husband is a physician. He had 2 disability policies. Now, you can't collect on 2, you only collect on 1. Fortunately, he took out 1 when he was very young and this bill was next to nothing to pay. But the whole point is, 30 years later, we have accumulated quite a bit of money in somebody else's pocket for which we did, because we didn't look at those things anymore. And importantly, we forget, which is the problem with aging. The most vulnerable age groups are our millennials, our 20 to 40-year-olds, but also 51 and above. They are the most vulnerable groups. This is another interesting one. Because we are not involved, 80% of women will change the financial advisor within 2 years of the death of their spouse or partner.
Or divorce.
Or divorce. Yes. And part of that is because someone may have been chosen who works well for a family, but we're not confident. Robyn talks about changing. I changed when I got involved. We changed everybody. The way we relate to individuals is differently than we might have as a couple in doing this. And I had concerns and desires from our financial advisor that my husband did not. He understood a lot more than I did. So I wanted to be with somebody who was really careful and explicit in giving us direction and didn't take for granted that I knew something.
And that's something that Marilee and I really focused on, because the bulk of financial advisors are men. And the fact that they really need to nurture and work with the relationships with their female clients, it's critical.
3 out of 10, let me ask you this. Do you all know your spouse's, loved one, children's passwords to critical information? You're not alone. Only 3 out of 10 of us can name the top 3 accounts for their username and passwords. And it just gets worse. As we get older, it just gets worse. And then another, and Robyn and I, this is our favorite, if you don't buy into any of those reasons as to why you should get yourself organized, just remember your partner isn't going to remember anything you tell them. So it's going to happen. It's scary. This is another interesting idea. It isn't just some of the research that we put up there, but even the financial advisors themselves talk about the difficulty in doing financial plans for individuals who come in ill-prepared to have the discussions. We had one who commented and said they bring their stuff in a shoebox or an envelope, they throw out everything on the desk, and then they start looking at each other and say, I didn't know you did that, and the bickering starts between the two of them with all of these assumptions, and their life is not in order, and before they start a financial plan, they need to understand a lot about their life, and these folks are ill-prepared to have those discussions. So we talk about what are the solutions here. So, okay, we have that problem, we need to get involved. There are some things that we can do. One, we need to stay informed, and that probably cannot be overstated. To take an active role, work together on short-term goals, and look, we all divide and conquer, so we're not suggesting here that you become the person who takes over just to stay informed, but we are suggesting that you find a way to plug into those conversations. Maybe it's an hour every month. Maybe it's the date night. Maybe it's lunch with your spouse. Maybe it's the TV goes off for an evening, but it's something regular. It's set in at the same time that you might set something else in your life, so that you'll always go back. Yes?
I'm lucky I have a financially informed spouse, but many of us are single or, don't have that relationship. Can you
Yes.
talk a little about who they should be picking?
Well,
So that when you talk about spouse, they know what the alternate is.
and that number is 50%. 50% of people are single. And Marilee and I have talked about this, and it depends. Sometimes it's a child, sometimes it's another family member, sometimes it's a trusted financial advisor. It really varies. It depends on the individual.
You have to pick someone though. So if you are single,
Yep.
and you are trying to let somebody understand where things are, you will have to take responsibility for that decision. You will have to find someone. In the case of family is difficult. Sometimes when you are alone and you're not co-located with family, it's difficult to find somebody who can be vested in your life and to know it well. Distance sometimes creates, maybe over time, you just kind of lose contact. The contacts are not as vibrant as they once were. So professionals are great folks. So a financial advisor, an attorney, a trusted person who manages your organizational life. There are organizational folks out there that help pay bills and do things of this nature. Folks like that are very good. They're bonded, and they are living in the same community in which you are. It's very helpful. It's a point to be taken though, Fran. I've talked to Robyn many times about this. Actually, I've talked to my son. I have a 32-year-old son. I said to Ryan as I'm doing this, Ryan, if something should happen to you, God forbid, I'm not going to know where anything is. I'm going to be the mother who's going through your sock drawer trying to find your checkbook. And he said, Mom, I don't have a checkbook. I said, oh, okay, all right, how about your investments? You work hard, the few pennies that you have, who's this all gonna go to? Where do I get in touch with it? He said, Mom, I don't have a financial advisor. I said, well, who do you use? He uses a robot, Betterment. Everything is done online. He's so digitally oriented. So even when choosing someone, you need to think about someone who is capable of picking up your life in the way you live your life. So it's a great point, Fran. And when we say spouse, if we overuse that term, please know it's partner, it's best friend, it's professional. And then we suggest that you get an organizational tool. You need to be guided by something. You need something to say, this is what you need. For you to go back and do all the research on that could take years for you to do that. So it's nice to have some tool that kind of guides you through what needs to be done. It should be in a single space so that it is a point and click for you, a loved one, a friend, and importantly for somebody who's going to take over in the event that you weren't able to speak for yourself. We talk about the results. We've talked about the improved relationships with loved ones. No one's arguing about everything. You certainly save money. There's no question about that. You put those 14 days a month back in your life, and you can go on a vacation now, and then you certainly have some peace of mind in your life,
Right.
recognizing that things are taken care of in the event of an emergency or an unexpected event. Robyn talked about, well, how do you get started? So what is the very first thing you think you might do? If you think you want to do it, what's the first step you think you would take?
What would you do?
Gather your materials together.
That's
or
it.
locate things.
That's exactly right. And you'll realize very quickly that you're going to be looking at documents that fall into a personal category. That might be your birth certificates, your social security numbers, your cards, etc., your financial, health, social. What would be in social? What could you think of that in that pile might be?
Your membership.
Memberships.
WDC.
Yeah.
Definitely.
If you croak, who are the people you would want contact?
There you go. Who are these people? Your home life, obviously, your appliances, your possessions, your
Passwords, codes,
passwords,
keys.
anything, password codes, and then your end of life issues. You just do what Laura has suggested. You just go through the documents. You might just open up a drawer if that's what you have and things are filed, and you might be sufficiently organized that you can look at a topic. If you can't, just start making 6 folders or 7, however many are in your life, and start putting in the papers as you come upon them. But I will tell you, it's insufficient to just stick them in there, because then that's when you will not realize that you're paying double on your disability policy. Once you have things in what we would term into a file or a pile, it is incumbent upon you to read each and every document that you come across. We're going to talk a little later on about what you might save, shred, or toss, but for the moment, if you have an organizer, and we're speaking from now a point of you having some information as to what you should have in your personal life, financial, health, social, home life, and end of life. We have teed up here just some examples. An organizer, a good organizer, will identify the majority of what you will need. All of our lives are different, and so there'll be some customization that you'll want to do to pick up on your life. One thing you will quickly realize is that they are interdependent and interconnected. So let's figure out what that really means. It means if you start here and you want to do a living will, that's probably one of the first things that many of us will want to make sure that we have. Our DNRs or DNI orders, do you know what those terms are? Do not intubate, do not resuscitate orders are. In order to do that, let's work back and let's take a will. In order to do that, you need to know what your living will would be, what are your arrangements in the event you can't speak for yourself. Your will talks about your possessions, how are they going to be distributed. You're going to be talking perhaps in there about the charitable institutions, maybe giving opportunities to the WDC and to others, a legacy that you may want to leave behind.
She's good.
Yeah. I know that.
You're going to talk about your power of attorney, your durable power of attorney. We're going to talk about how these words matter. You're going to then pull out your trusts, your wills, your financial documents and papers, and your accounts. Now, we're still talking about doing a will, aren't we? And then finally, you're going to talk about some of the identity items where people can find your social security cards and access some passwords, usernames, etc. You can't just think in isolation, which is why we've broken it down into 6 areas. Robyn and I can't think like that. We had to break it all down. We call it crunching. What's the word? I can't even remember how we chunk it down into different pieces. But I just gave one example, which is to do a will. To demonstrate how things are connected together. I have some colors up here for a reason. One, I just did an example, but number 2, within each of these, there are absolutely critical essential documents. It doesn't matter what you do in your life, you absolutely must have. Among them are your credit cards that are in your wallet, and you should have a colored copy of that.
Why color?
Why color? Because when you go to reproduce the credit card, your black and white photograph blurs, and it is very difficult for people to get that through a scan or some other way in which you might be transmitting those numbers, like to your credit
It's
card
difficult to
company.
visually see it.
It's very difficult to visually see it. So they recommend that everything be given in color. The other document that they want in color too is what? What else would be another document?
Birth certificate.
birth certificate, driver's license, social security number, passport. Passport actually does a pretty good job of scanning, but the scanners that are in our airports do a color scan. So it's better to do it in color. Another critical document for all of us is our medications and our blood type.
What, why are you laughing?
Every time I go to the doctor, I say, what's my blood type? Oh, I don't know, we'll find out.
And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the, okay, you need these things, but where do you put them? You can't carry around a briefcase with you all the time, can you? So it's somewhere on our possession, our phone somewhere, Robyn's going to talk to you a little bit about a fun feature on our iPhones that needs to be maintained, again, thinking about the unexpected. Of course, where is your organizer? So if you do have everything in one place and you do have an organizer, it's essential to tell somebody where it is so they're not doing a scavenger hunt. And but I've only teed up here in color some of the important documents. And of course, all of these in color. Proof of identity, your durable power attorneys, all of these are in color to illustrate that they are the absolute essential documents that you need. But every life is different, and there's an essential document in every category. Just about. I didn't put one in our spiritual institutions I have there, but there are probably many more that you can put as well. Among these that you see here, which one is the most important? That is an absolute deal breaker. You must have it.
Which one?
The
will.
Social security, the will,
End of life.
end of life,
What do you think?
a person. It is proof of identity. It is who are you? So on our possession at all times, when you take that run, make sure there is a little zipper in the back of those yoga pants that we're using. You need either your driver's license, your birth certificate, original, correct? Passport, something that tells you who you are. Everything else can be obtained by going to the agency and getting it. Your social security statement. You can go to the website, do it yourself. Today, we have a very digital-oriented life. Yes?
Isn't the death certificate key as well? If you're
Yes.
the
Yes.
widow,
Absolutely.
you must get hold of
You
that
should have
death
multiple
certificate
copies.
and you have to give it to all these things,
And
right?
give it to
all the banks and
Absolutely.
right.
And Facebook, if
Right.
if the loved one,
You have to show the death
Right.
certificate to
you,
Facebook.
Facebook requires 2 copies. Let me tell you, Verizon
Wow.
will not take your word for it. They will not take a copy of any kind of executor, power of attorney. You call them and they will then tell you what they will require.
Even changing the name on a trust when someone passes away, that's why you have to have multiple copies of the death certificate.
Okay, so now you have your stuff in piles. You understand because you have something to guide you as to what's most important. So you've laid out everything and you've gone through your paperwork and you realize that you have some things missing. You've made your notes about what you might need, things you're going to want to do. We talked about reading. Now you're going to decide what to keep, because now the piles have become overwhelming and you're thinking about renting another place or a storage facility. What do I do with all of these papers that I've accumulated? Well, let me tell you, I'm going to start at the bottom line up front. Let your judgment decide. If you feel comfortable, keep it. I'm just going to give you some guidance that you might have that might want to inform your thinking. It's not to take it to a level of discomfort for you. You absolutely, if you decide to shred something that has your personal, if you decide to get rid of something that has your personal information on it, you're going to want to shred it. That's another deal breaker, okay? So here are, and we always give it to err on the side of caution. If you think you want something, keep it. Things you want to keep forever. Now this is a very abbreviated list. We produce other lists that have much more depth than this, but forever, 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 you see you want to keep your birth certificate, your driver's license, your social security number, all of those things you want to keep. Some of those are really handy to put in a nice envelope, a clear plastic envelope that you can see through. It's hard to put things in manila envelopes or colored envelopes. You don't know what's in there, so you can't immediately grab and go. So you want to put something in a clear envelope. They make great places for that. You don't need files for every one of those papers. Things that you no longer need. So if you sell your home, why are you still keeping the home improvement? I asked myself that question when I moved into an apartment from a 5,000 square foot home. What am I doing with this, right? What am I doing with all the furniture I gave away, all these receipts? So there are things that you just accumulate because you have the place to put them and you don't go through them. You can toss those things. other documents are listed up here when they're no longer needed. Don't keep around the power of attorney that expired. That's actually dangerous to do. Until expired, obviously our licenses or passports. How many of you keep every rendition of your passport?
Yep.
Yes, okay. Well, if that makes you feel comfortable, you should do it. I should
Does she
let
want to
you know.
save that picture?
To me, it's rather depressing to look at what I look like for my first passport. But if you want to do it, that makes you feel comfortable, but you should know you don't have to. You can get rid of it. And would you, how would you, there you go, you would shred it.
Shred it.
Absolutely shred it, okay. Things you want to keep for 7 years, well, we all know our taxes, our W-2 forms, any other tax related. That might be a home improvement. You haven't sold your home, you want to keep those documents for that. You can toss your ATM receipts. Our purses don't love them. I don't know about you, but mine are all scrunched up, sometimes at the bottom. So, and your canceled checks, you can throw those away, again, unless they're related to taxes.
A lot of us don't use checks very much.
Right.
We write our checks through the bank or
Yep.
we just use a credit card.
Correct.
Is it sufficient to be able to access those electronically
Yes.
when needed?
Yes, yes, absolutely. No need to keep them, no need to keep them. Okay, so.
I mean, again, everybody's a little bit different. I mean, I'm a little crazier than Marilee when it comes to saving things, and I have more space currently. I keep things for a year, and then after that year's over, I go back and rotate to the next year, and then I shred and keep one statement for each account that I have. So again, your own personal comfort level has to rule.
I only keep the most current, the month I'm in, that's it. So again, it's personal choice. You should find a system that's sufficiently flexible to allow you to do what you think you'll do and allow you to change your mind.
Right.
So if you want to keep it, you can keep it. It's not limited by size or space. Okay, this is an important, there are 2 slides that are coming up that are important. Remember we talked about the things, you have your piles, you know what's important, you know what you need. Words matter, and they matter a lot. So, is there another term for a living will? Have you heard of another term?
A moles?
There you go, that's one.
What was that?
A moles.
Medical,
Yeah, something.
something,
Oh,
yes, directive, yes. You hear advanced directives as a catch-all term. People say different things, make sure you understand what they mean. Living will is probably the most common and the most direct because it talks about how you want to live your life. Okay, so what's the difference between a general power of attorney and a durable power of attorney? And do you need both or one? And which one, if you did, which one would you choose?
Durable.
Durable, why'd you choose durable?
I would choose durable because if you are in sound mind when you have a general, but then become demented or something happens, that will no longer work. You must have a durable.
Absolutely
Excellent.
perfect, you're hired. Absolutely, that is so, to do a general power of attorney, it's great. Robyn, here is a limited power of attorney. You can help me move my things from my home in Arizona to my resting place in Fox Hill. You can help me do that. It expires, it's fine. You can have a general power of attorney, and if you talk about what you want your life to look like and what you want people to do and how you want things done, the moment you become incapacitated or unable to make that decision, it is a useless document. It must be durable. Does durable mean that it continues at your death?
No.
No, very good, you're hired too.
Yeah.
No,
Smart. I
Kathleen.
told you, my husband said
Yeah.
smart group.
No, it does not. What takes over at that point?
You will.
The will. Who's the most important person in that will at that point? The executor. Okay, you've got it. Very good. Batting 100 here. Okay, here's one that we don't often know and remember about, and that's, I call them permission slips, simply because we have our educational background here. You're in the hospital, and people call and want to know how you're doing. So, how is Ricky today? Well, who are you? So if you want someone to get information about you when you are ill or where you are somewhere, just leave that, what we call permission slip, just a list at the hospital of people who can be given information. Otherwise, they won't be able to include a caregiver or the spouses usually they'll give, but not over the phone.
And you can also leave that with your primary care physician as well.
Absolutely. Okay, people refer to advanced directives for healthcare and assume that an advance directive and durable powers of attorney are pretty general documents, and they're not. We've broken them into two categories here. There are a set of orders that deal with your life, and by the way, I want to mention, a DNI and a DNR are orders. They are put in a medical file. You may annotate them on your driver's license or in a separate piece of paper, but they are orders that have to be given, by a doctor, and they should be put in your medical records. You also have your advance directives, sometimes they're called that, but most commonly it's a durable power of attorney for finances. In fact, this term is getting to be kind of funny. People refer to durable power of attorney and only mean finances, and then refer to a power of attorney for medical. So it's careful how you hear these words, which is why I'm pointing it out.
Can it be the same person for both?
Yes.
Can you have two different people? Absolutely.
So in the case of Jill, when Jill says she's incapacitated, she has her durable power of attorney, she needs it because if she is unable to pay her bills or to go get money, she can't do that, correct? Somebody has to have a durable power of attorney in order to do that. When you think about that, what comes to mind about your bank accounts? What does somebody need to know who is taking over for you on the moment?
Passwords.
A password, absolutely.
Account numbers.
Account numbers, importantly, which account is the one where the bills are paid? We all have lots of different accounts. So be careful that they not only know the username, the password, which account to take it out, but also importantly, which one is the one that pays the bills. Okay. Advanced directives for your finances also include your living trust. If you have trust designees, the trust will tell somebody how to distribute the assets. We're not giving advice that you should have a trust, but we are mentioning it as an important document, as most of us do have a trust. And there are important tax benefits for that reason, so it's important that you have, if you do have it, that as Robyn said, that you understand who the beneficiaries and the trust agents are on that.
I have a question.
Yeah?
Okay, what if I sign papers and I have Marilee as the beneficiary for one of my accounts? That's documented. But in my will, my children are my beneficiaries. What happens if I die?
Will takes precedence.
No,
No?
the beneficiary statement takes precedence. I would have thought the same thing. Yes, so you have to make sure that you go back and double check and make sure that your beneficiaries reflect what you have in your will, and more importantly, what it is you want.
Does date matter? If something precedes or succeeds a certain directive, when does it take over?
Not that I'm aware of, no. But again, every state, views some of these things differently, and again, we always suggest to, make sure that you consult with your financial advisors to make sure that whatever you've done is accurate for that
In
state.
the case of the example Robyn gave, the date does not matter.
No,
The will would not, which would be the most current presumably, would not have taken preference because it was signed and delivered within a couple years of her passing, heaven forbid here. But the beneficiary would still go to her best friend and not her children. Not me, by the way.
and I'm sure we can all cite, and I'm sure we
I didn't
can,
know her back
right,
then.
and I'm sure we can cite stories where that's happened, that
Oh,
people
yes.
didn't go back and revisit things, and their life situations have changed, and people that they wanted to get those assets didn't get them, went to someone else, things they'd decided on 40 years ago.
What is the most common mistake in the beneficiary overlook? What do you think would be the most common thing that you forget to do on the beneficiary?
Let them know that they're the beneficiary?
Okay, well that's on the list, but not the most common.
How to reach them?
No, it's you forgetting that you have other children. So you designate on the beneficiary, and you leave out the other two. We had a client who did that, left out the other two. Fortunately, the one who had it understood the intent of the parents. Happens. We just forget that we have to go back and revisit them because we've had some children along the way. Here are two things. Yes, Graham.
What happens to stuff? Example, my mother had some lovely jewelry. When, long before she died, she had a list. This goes to Susan, this goes to Francis, this goes to the kids, and the rest of it, we should just divvy up. My sister and I get along, it worked out, but I could see that had she not done that, there were some things we might have.
We always recommend to everyone to have the essential conversations and be as explicit as you possibly can. Take photos.
Now, she had it
Sit
all
down.
written down.
You know, that's really, you know, and we always hear stories about someone went in, the mother got sick, they took all the jewelry or all the, you know, things, whatever. Again, have the essential conversations and write things down.
And is that part of the will or trust, or is that an ancillary document?
Can be, it depends. You know, if you've got a Van Gogh, in most cases, that's in the will. But if
I'm
it's
taking that with
but
me.
right, but if it's a little, you know, as Marilee calls it, if it's a little tchotchke, you know, perhaps not.
Yeah.
Because it has value to you, but not necessarily a monetary value, and those would be written as an auxiliary kind of statement.
So, excuse me, so it's in the will?
Can be.
Can be, usually your very valuable possessions are in your will.
Absolutely.
And jewelry may be among them, which is why Robyn said it would just depend. If it's simple jewelry that you're just gonna divide, you wouldn't be putting that in the will. But your possessions can be divided as stated. In our will, I think we have some language that says possessions are divided as stated in the attached letter or the attached sign page of our organizer, because I have ours listed that way. So we just point and click to something else. We don't describe it in the will because there are a number of things that we identify in
And
that
many of
document.
our clients take photos. So there's no question in terms of who belongs to what. And some people just scratch it in the bottom of the item, say this is for me, this is for you. So again, every family approaches it a little differently.
But our will does point to that document as being deferential in the discussion, even though it's not stated in the will. So there is, and again, be guided by your own advice from the attorneys, and on that point, yes.
One thing my parents did, just to put in the back of your mind, is they actually started divesting the important expensive items as they downsized and went
Yes.
into a system.
Very
So
common.
when you have that conversation with your parents, you may want to suggest they start giving away
Excellent.
things
Right.
before they die.
And many families do that.
That's a great suggestion. Okay, so here's two, yes.
I do have a caveat though, because if you start doing that, you might run into the gift tax problem, so you have to be careful how you do it.
Definitely.
All good, all great advice. Okay, so I have one for you. I have two actually for you. We talked about that durable power of attorney. Thank you, Jill. We talked about powers of attorney, all these things that we can do to give people the authority to do something. Do you think Social Security and the IRS care about those documents? So let's take Jill again. Let's pick on Jill for a moment. So Jill is incapacitated, and she wants her spouse, loved one, to go to Social Security and get a rundown of her benefits, and also wants to be able to collect her Social Security, put it into the bank account, because that money is going to be used to help carry the expenses in her rehabilitation place. And you walk up to Social Security, well, bless you if you do walk up, you'll probably be doing it on the phone. You send them a durable power of attorney because that's what you have, and it allows you to go do her work on her behalf. And what will Social Security and the IRS say to you? They will say, thank you very much, that's a really interesting document, we're very happy that you have one, but it's not good enough for us. Two federal agencies, the only two, that will not look at the durable power of attorney and do anything. Social Security being one of them. Social Security requires that they appoint you to be what they call the representative payee. It's a broad term here. Payee doesn't just mean somebody who gets her money, it also means somebody who gets information, okay? They appoint. They can decide that even though Jill appointed you in her durable power of attorney, they may decide you're not good enough. We have some suspicions about you. Maybe you're a criminal, Laura. I don't know what your background is.
I have to throw this out. When you hear this, and it just makes your head spin in terms of the complications of all the things that we need to contend with, doesn't it even make it more important to have the things that you can organize ahead of time put together?
So Social Security will approve you, will appoint you after they do some investigative work on their own time. You think they do that quickly, by the way?
Months.
Okay, so be careful, give them some lead time. It's called a representative payee. Right. And we say it's the action that a POA, someone who has a power of attorney, would take. The power of attorney is not sufficient. In fact, they say on their website that a POA or being an authorized representative does not confer authority to manage someone's Social Security benefits. That's taken right off their website. Now, because they're government, they produce a great guide for the representative payee, so you can go read it, you can go on their website, you can call them, you can do all kinds of things. Point here is just to tell somebody that you can't just assume that your spouse will be able to take care of that, and that that money will go into an account. Here's the other kicker. Social Security, when you are designated as the representative payee, you must take her money and put it into a separate account. You cannot commingle her benefit with your joint account. And they do that for audit purposes to make sure that they can track the expenditures. You cannot use those expenditures except to care for Jill. Jill, we're so happy you're here with us. We're not, you're not a criminal. Okay. All right, so now you just to keep in mind.
That's a POA.
Power of attorney.
Power of attorney.
What it's saying is, I may designate you, I designate Robyn to take care of my Social Security benefit, or I have a power of attorney that says Robyn will take care of my stuff when, or durable power of attorney when I'm not able to do so. The Social Security Administration will say, not enough.
Right.
Not enough. We're going to approve you. And when we do that, then we're going to ask you to do certain things. And among the rules will be that you have to show a separate checking account. Okay? Now, there is, and I gave you the number up here if you want to call the Social Security Administration. Unfortunately, you can't do these things until the moment of need. You can't go get approved, get pre-approved. I did call and ask, and they won't pre-approve you. Sorry. Okay, the IRS. So you want to take care of taxes that she owes. Okay, so how do you take care of that? Well, the IRS is saying, I'm so sorry that you have a durable power of attorney. It's so nice to know, and really great to meet you, Laura. They don't approve you, by the way. They don't care, Laura, that you robbed the bank yesterday. They have no worry about that. But they are going to ask you to fill out Form 2848, a nice form in which you sign away your life and you tell them who you are. You produce all kinds of identification to say who you are, and you give them references and so on. But you must fill out 2848. By the way, something I did not realize, that our accountants and lawyers who handle our tax information have also filled one of these out. The 2848 does not just extend to someone who is in need, it also extends to those who are managing our information before the IRS. If they have to represent you before the IRS, they have actually filled out the 2848 as well. Okay? Yes?
So when do we fill out these forms? At what point
This
do
one,
we?
you can do this one today, and just make sure that you keep it current, because this one is just authorizing someone to do it. This one doesn't have any appointment, there's no background investigation that goes with this. This is simply an appointment
But
authority.
is it prudent to do it now so that you're ready in case something
It is,
happens?
and
Or do you
we-
need to revise it
There's
later?
no downside.
There's no downside to that, none whatsoever. Okay, I'm gonna turn the floor over to Robyn, because I'm sure you're tired of hearing about putting Laura in jail and poor Jill over here. So I will turn this over to Robyn.
If I have enough voice. All right, we talk about estate hygiene. You know, think about hygiene, keeping yourself fit and healthy. And so we've broken it down into several categories. You need to have an organization system, something that tells you what you need, what you have, where it is, something that you can update easily, something that you feel secure about, and something that your loved ones understand. I cannot tell you how many people unintentionally have done something with their organizational system, and when they sit down and have a conversation, the spouse or partner says, I don't understand that. And it's not intentional, but of course in some cases it is, but most it's not. So you need to be able to understand it so you can communicate whatever that thinking is. I'm kind of rushing through because we're kind of running a little short on time. Periodically review and update your documents. We talked about beneficiaries, insurance policies, wills and trusts. When was the last time you changed your will? Was there some life event that occurred, some big change in your life? Your medication listing. You know, if you're on a number of medications, who has a list of that? If something was to unfortunately happen to you, your advanced healthcare directives, your end-of-life wishes, your Medicare credit reports, things of that nature. Also, being prepared. We talked about having that go-to person. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's someone other than a family member, but who has the information, who knows where things are, who's that go-to person, who's gonna handle your finances. We love our smartphones, and I'll show you later how you can make sure you can get to all your medical information while your phone is locked. You need to have access to the will outside your safe deposit box. In other words, you want to have a copy of your will at home, not in your safe deposit box, which I think most of you all know. And you want to make sure that your wishes are explicit. You've worked hard, you've lived a full life, and you want to make sure that your wishes are honored. And then take action. You want to protect your personal information. You want to secure and frequently change your passwords. We haven't talked a lot about passwords, but that certainly has become a big change in our lives. I know when I was a kid, there was no such thing as a password or even a smartphone, and that clearly has changed all of our lives. As simple as we try to make our lives, they're somewhat complicated. And we want to make sure that we report unauthorized purchases, and that, I don't know about you, but I am a senior, and I want to take advantage of all senior discounts that are available to me. So again, we want to make our life as fruitful and as full and as enriched as we possibly can, and have great peace of mind. Okay, begin to organize your personal estate now before change will happen, and it will. Marilee and I always tease and say that everybody has an expiration date, we just don't know when it is. Our focus is not really about end of life. Our focus is on living our life fully today, so that we make decisions, we make choices based on knowledge. So we can go forth and have that peace of mind that we talked about, and we're comfortable. Yes, again, we all have an expiration date, but let's live our life each day to the fullest and have that extra 2 weeks, because we know where everything is. And we love that Chinese proverb, and go back, it's one step at a time. We talk about chunking things, taking things one step at a time. And I love this. Marilee, take away, the best gift is a roadmap to your personal estate. Go for it, Marilee.
Okay, so let me just, as we wind down, and we're gonna have a Q&A after this for questions. Was there something today that made you go, geez, I didn't think about that? Something in our minds. Was there something where you just said, I forgot to do it, I didn't do it the right way, maybe I'm gonna make a mistake. Let me think about that. Right? The moment of, And then that moment where you say, I've got it all, I'm good, take a nice breath. So if we were putting that all together, what would our sounds be? It'd be, right? So we end on that note? Alrighty, and we're open for questions. Anybody have any questions?
This isn't a question, but it's just affirmation, I think, not that we needed, of what you're talking about. I have a dear friend who passed away a couple of years ago, and she was very smart, accomplished professional, but she lived alone, and everything was up here. She wasn't terribly organized, but everything was always up here. Well, she got terminally ill, and Robyn and Marilee very, very kindly offered to go and sit with her for one full day, I think it was one long day, and helped her get organized to the extent she could do that. And after she passed away, her family took me aside and said, we can't tell you how helpful that was. We could not have done it without that, getting everything in one place. They were just going on and on. So even though they knew who her lawyer was, her financial planner, blah, 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 they couldn't have done it. They said it would have taken months upon months to try to reinvent the wheel. So just wanted to point that out.
Grant?
Thank you.
It's kind of a follow-up to what Nikki said. We have a trust. We have a lawyer who put it together. It's in a notebook. I know where it is. I have a CPA husband who thinks he knows all this stuff. I would just as soon not think about it. I guess I'm asking whether, is there a way for me to not think about it and just trust that those people are doing it on my behalf? Or is that really stupid?
That would not be our recommendation, to be gentle about it. We have really come to believe very passionately that it is really essential for all of us to be knowledgeable, and that no one is going to have greater interest in your well-being than you. And I'm not suggesting that you need to understand all the financial intricacies of how to invest in X, Y, and Z. You can trust your financial advisor to take on that chore, that task. But you should have a sense holistically of what your life is about. So that, I can't tell you how many women have said to us, I hope I die before my husband, because I would not know what to do. And we've heard the reverse as well, because their wives were the ones that were involved and knew more. So I will tell you that it is critical to do. It is important. We were there. We didn't take that tremendous interest until, a life event made us kind of, wake up and realize that it was an essential thing to do. I mean, it's like I said, I'd much rather go out for a run than necessarily sit down and record all this information. But I know in my heart of hearts, and as I go through my life, and as Marilee and I have been going through this whole process, there is a sense of inner peace and calm that we have both experienced since we started on this journey, and that we know what it is that we have, what we need, and where things are, and that our children also feel more secure that we've gone through this process.
Since you mentioned children, at what point do you gently encourage your children to do this? Is it when they have a child, or is it sooner, or should you leave them to their own?
They say that once you're 18, you have possessions. It might just be fancy tennis shoes. We look at it as, we said, life-ready fitness. We look at it as something that you need to think as part of your life on a daily basis. So for young people, they've started new jobs, they have pension plans, they have different investments, they may have an apartment. Whatever it is, it's a good habit to get kids involved in. I know that my two children are in their 30s. Ryan is, in his 30s. Both my kids have children, and it's something that they have gotten used to doing. And again, I'd rather go for a run than sit down and do those things, but when they sit down and meet with their estate attorney, when they work on their wills, they work with their financial advisor, they bring, their organization system with them, and they're able to make choices and decisions based on something that's substantial and concrete. So, any age.
We have a section in ours, and you'll find it common perhaps in others to a detail, makes a difference in how it's organized and done. But there's a section called the home section, which has the appliances, who the service provider is, etc. The awakening for my son wasn't enough to have a mother who's in the business, a good, adopted aunt who's in the business wasn't good enough. He bought his first, he bought a condo, his very first home, if you will. And the garbage disposal didn't work.
How are you?
So now he's responsible for that. There's nobody in the apartment building who's gonna come up and take care of that. He had all of this stuff everywhere, all these manuals and so on. And he called me and he said, "Mom, can you come help me? I want to fill out that section." He just wanted to go grab the piece of paper that said who the provider is, not go through all of these materials that he had been accumulating as a result of taking ownership for the house. So there are different ways that people hook into it, but I would agree with Robyn that you should, the goal is to live an informed life. The goal is not to worry about the end of life and what you're going to do. That's important too, but we want everyone to be focused on how do you live your life, and then how do you take care of your life, and how do you ensure that your wishes are carried regarding your life.
And it's not the kind of thing that I need to know what my children have specifically. No. I don't need to know their financial numbers. But if something was, God forbid, to happen to them, I would need to be able to pick up their life and be able to execute their wishes. So, again, you're transparent and you need to communicate these ideas, but you don't need to necessarily know the very specifics. My husband said to me about a month ago, he says, "We need a new hot water heater. You're supposed to get a new hot water heater every 10 years or we could have come home to a flood." And I said, pulled out my organizer and I said, "Honey, we just got one 3 years ago." So, we get busy, we forget. And so when you record things and you're explicit about things, it just makes life easier.
But even if you don't have much, or if your child doesn't have much, or your friend doesn't have much, they may have loans out, mortgages that need to be dealt with.
Absolutely.
I know people say, "Oh, I don't have much, I don't have." No, you do. You really do. Whether it's a little bit, a lot, or somewhere in between.
Yep. Yes.
Passwords, how do you change them frequently, keep them all organized and in a place that's safe, and provide the updated information to the people with durable power of attorney?
Everybody does it, their approach is a little bit different. Some people use a password manager. And
you know what that is?
You know what a password manager, everybody knows what that app is for a password manager?
LastPass, yeah.
So, so that all they would need to have would be the password that you would update if you were to change your password manager code, which most people don't tend to change that specifically. Some people like a hard copy. We suggest the hard copy so that you can always access it, even if you were to have an app and something that you have online. I think the most important thing that we find with passwords is that you go online and you change it, you said forget password, and then you forget to go back and tell whomever needs to know that information. So again, as Marilee had mentioned, having that periodic meeting. And when you go through and say, oh, by the way, did you happen to change that password? Or were there other changes that occurred? So again, it being a priority to have those conversations on a periodic basis.
That is a skill set that we all have come to learn, or realize that we have to learn. A system for keeping track of your passwords and recording them when they change, and recording when they change requires some discipline. When am I going to do it? So you could create a system, you could use a piece of paper, you could buy an organizer, whatever you want to do. The habit that we have to establish is the discipline to write them down as we change them. And we recommend that they be kept in one place. This is one document, one set of information that everything's critical that we say should be in one place. This should be.
I use a Rolodex. It's not the most secure, but it's all in
It's
one
a way.
place.
It's a way, it's your
all
way.
in one place, and it's right next to my desktop computer, and I keep my husband's in there too, and it's alphabetical.
You know what, there was an article in the New York Times a couple of years ago that said the safest place to keep your password is on a sticky note on your desk. So again, it depends on your comfort level in terms of what feels right for you. And Marilee and I both approach it a little differently, and that's okay.
The article was being a bit tongue-in-cheek. It was saying that it's less likely that someone's going to break into your home than it is a system is going to be hacked. So that was the point. There was just sort of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying it. I think the point is still you need to secure them, and they need to be secure.
And anybody can get anything. It's interesting, when Marilee and I started out this whole process, we thought it was going to be web-based. And as we met with people and as we went through the process ourselves, we decided not to make our system web-based because people don't feel secure in that. Listen, everybody wants to get my stuff, they're going to get my stuff, but I feel better knowing that people don't have access to it, only I do, and the ones that I want to have access to it do.
I have a question going back to the IRS and the Social Security not caring about durable POAs. I'm the executor for my sister's will. If her husband dies first, she has dementia. So if he's gone and I have a durable power of attorney, Social Security is still going to say tough.
They're going to look at you, do a background check. Are you suitable?
So what can I do
At
ahead
the
of time?
time, you can't. Unfortunately, you can't.
And for
But for the IRS, you can. The IRS, you can. The
So
IRS,
get
you
the
can fill out that
2848
2848 today and be fine.
Okay.
But for Social Security, it is at the moment of crisis, unfortunately. They promise they'll take care of it quickly. But you then advise them that you have the durable power of attorney. They're going to say, that's interesting, thank you, and then they're going to have you fill out the forms, they're going to have you
Hopefully she has other
appointed.
sources of income.
Right.
But Social Security is very nice to deal with. Back when we speak
Actually,
about
they really
Maryland,
are.
they're very nice to deal with.
And they have a great office here too, and might be in Silver Spring, and they're wonderful to deal with. But it's just to know that you can't automatically do that. Now, I don't remember in my parents' situation that we worried about stuff like that. When that check came in the mail, my father opened it, he put it in the account, he did what he needed to do with it.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know what their enforcement pieces are to it. But anyway, you could not do that, and it is against the law to do that. And so you would want to make sure that you, at that crisis, you'll have to go to SSA.
Something to think about.
Yeah, you'll have to go.
Other questions? Yes.
I'm a technologist by profession, and we're at this confluence now of everything being digital versus everything being paper and analog. And there's recommendations to do things like scan, take pictures of your driver's license, do all this. And now you've got a copy that might be saying now just automatically uploaded to the cloud because you took a picture of it. You're saying, okay, here's everything I have secured for years and kept very private. Now I just want to give it all to a child who might stick it into a drawer, or maybe it's sitting up on their Google Drive, or you lose control of that. So you've made it extremely simple if anyone does get into the entire gold pot. And so I quite often, for example, for my clients too, that I act as a digital proxy for things such as stored documents, and there's passwords, but how many times you get the call, oh, I can't remember this password. And if you change the password and everything is in one place and it's shared even via email that's no longer private, or you've got literally a copy of every document you have, how do we sort of get past that? We need to make it easily accessible to those who need it under crisis, versus we really need to keep it locked up. And now it requires two-step authentication. It's got to go to your phone before you actually get it. You can't do this unless you have the phone. And I bring up the concept of documents stored in one place and desktops is fire. All of a sudden you have a fire and your computer that has your information on it is destroyed. The backup drive that you've been really good to do is sitting connected to the computer that's now gone. The notebook that has all the passwords to everything is right there, and the information you've provided to your children saying it's all supplied in this file drawer right next to in my office. It's all gone immediately. How do we prepare for those type of things, getting them essentially off-site but protected?
You're giving me an anxiety attack.
Well, this is the preparing for the unexpected, because you think you've done step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's all still sitting in one physical place, and the security that we're trying to get with all this crazy encryption, et cetera, that just gets completely bypassed because you've got to make it so easy, or if you've made it so difficult, you can't get to it, your children can't get to it, nobody can get to it because it's all locked up, and whether it's Social Security or whether it's an IRS saying, sorry, you need this, 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 and this, and you created an environment where it doesn't really exist.
Correct.
What do you recommend?
Well, let's take apart what he said, because he said a lot there under different circumstances.
Excellent question.
Okay? In case of fire. So when you're thinking about, let's say you have an organizer and you've put everything, or you have your envelopes, you have everything, and you want to find that one place where everything is, quote, safe. If it's paper related, etc., you're going to have to secure that in a fireproof something, whether it's the vault in your house or whether it's the floorboards on the floor, whether it's sitting on the kitchen table. You need a fireproof, theft-proof box. They are sold. They're expensive and they're sold. Fire. If you are trying to locate something and give people access to it quickly so they know where things are, a digital access can be problematic and challenging for certain generations of people and for certain people. In his example, he was suggesting that some people take all of their information, snap pictures of it, and then send it to their cyber vault. Put it in the cloud, keep it there, and it sounds like a terrific idea, right? Because having cyber is better. Not gonna have a fire up there, over there, correct? So those documents are all good. And all I need to do is to give my loved one or my professional a code to get into that system. If you feel comfortable, and there are a lot of companies out there that will do cyber vaults, that is a way to manage digital information. He's a digital proxy for a reason. People have digital information, they store their information that way. It is a way to do it. Is it subject to being hacked? I suspect in your field, they can do just about anything.
I recommend it not be on the cloud and not be pulled out, and it's actually on digital encrypted drives stored in my house in the basement, as opposed to.
I'm just getting to that.
We're just
Very
getting to
good.
that.
Just getting to that point. Taking a blend of what he said, hard copy, cyber. I personally fall right in the middle. And in our system and in other systems that you might look for, I look for the thumb drive. All of my information is on a thumb drive. And yes, I have snap pictures of my passport, my birth certificate, a few important items that are on my thumb drive. I am not using an encrypted thumb drive, and it's only because I'll lose the password and I won't be able to get into my data, so it's simply a problem with me. I couldn't even find my glasses an hour ago, so I'm not on an encrypted drive. But I would recommend the encrypted drive if you have a good way of remembering where that is. That's the problem with the encrypted drives, you have to remember that password. But let's leave it, just put it on a regular thumb drive at the moment. Putting it on a thumb drive. That thumb drive can be shared. I absolutely, in a moment of need, not even the best thing to do, I can email somebody something from it. I can pull something out of that. I can take my drive and I can give it to Fran. I'm not going to give it to you because you're in jail, so I'm going to give it to you. And you're too sick, so you're not getting it either. But I'm going to give it to Fran because her husband's a CPA and he's going to take good care of it. I'm going to give it to Fran because Fran can get into the computer to do it. We went to France a couple of months ago. I gave Ryan, our son, the same one who likes the robot life, I didn't give him my thumb drive, but I told him where it was. Everything, including who gets my charm bracelet, she's not the beneficiary of that,
She tells me
is
that
on
daily.
there. Everything is on there. So I have chosen the middle piece. Robyn uses a hard copy. And so if Robyn has to worry about I have to worry about that too. My thumb drive is stored in a protected, fireproof, theft-proof box, and it's duplicated off-site.
But
It is in somebody else's possession. It's in my sister's possession.
And the other thing that we've done with our system is we differentiated. As you saw, we have 6 different life themes or sections, and you can differentiate how you want to secure and save each one of them. Whether it's something you're going to go to on a regular basis, and you can put that on a hard copy, and then also have that flash drive which has some of the other information on it. Even though I have the skill set, I like a hard copy. I like to put my hands on something. I utilize my organizer all the time. And so I use those transparency sheets. So I have all of these documents right next to, say I have my statement from Capital One. Right next to that is a statement that shows that account and also has my beneficiaries right there. Of course, I do on my phone have a copy of my driver's license and my passport and things of that nature. So again, when we developed this for ourselves, this was long before it became a business, we had to really look at what each other's comfort level was so that we could customize it to meet our own personal needs and even if those needs changed.
But your point, Scott, is really a great one because it is something to think about. He called himself a digital proxy. There's also digital executors.
Right.
There are people who have sole access, point someone like Scott, to take care of and manage all of our digital lifestyle because we don't want to do that.
Right.
Back to, I don't want to get involved.
Right.
We go hire a Scott or go hire a Sheila or somebody who takes care of these things for us and we don't have to worry about it. Doesn't say you don't know about it. It just says that somebody else is managing it.
Right.
But in any case, just as the discipline is required to write down your passwords or code them somewhere when they change, there is discipline required as to where you're going to store this information. You must think about it. It is not good enough to go through all this work and then just assume that there will be no fire, there will be no theft, or there will...
And also, who knows where it is?
Yeah.
Ricky, you had a question?
No, I was just gonna say that you have to keep up with the technology, but many of us have a safety deposit box somewhere
Correct.
in some bank that you could put the thumb drive in there. Just remember to update it. Now the technology could change so that maybe it was on a CD-ROM at one point and now it's on a thumb drive and who knows in 10 or 20 years what it would be on. It might be on a little chip or something.
Chip in your brain.
But at least to keep a copy of the most up-to-date
Right.
in a safety deposit box, I think it would be pretty easy.
So what's the downside of a safe deposit? What's a caution on a safe
Who
deposit?
has
Okay.
access to signatures, you wanna make sure that people can get into it.
Exactly.
Especially when.
Especially after you die, because.
So tell us about that.
Well, only your executor can get into it, so your executor would have to be appointed, and that takes a long time.
Well, our kids are already on our
you can
safety
do it
deposit.
now.
Which is why we talked about the fact that you should have a copy of your will that you can easy access at home. Someone knows what it is.
And Ricky just said something important. Right now, whomever she wants to access, that is already decided, done, so that at a moment of need, it can be accessed. They're not thinking about it at the end of life. It's in the safe deposit box. We think that's good, but nobody's on the signature part of that, and that has to go to probate. Am I right? It's probate? We'll take care of that.
Yeah, we have these essential conversations now. Yes.
I have a question, but if it's not of general interest, we
No.
can ask it after. How do you go about finding a financial advisor? And particularly, I'm also thinking when there's not a lot of money involved, but there may be some complications. And so there's not really money to be made. I mean, I just, and I'm thinking about my father in Connecticut, so it's not local, but I'm just trying to figure it out.
A lot of it really comes from talking to your friends, people that you trust, and then meet with several people.
What are you looking for? Because there are advisors who are like with Charles Schwab, you know what I'm saying? And if you're not talking about investing in a particular area, you're talking about just general,
Obviously you want someone, you don't want like a Madoff thing, you want someone whose investment company is going through a substantial investment company. So there are a lot of private advisors who maybe go through Raymond James or Merrill Lynch. So you want an advisor.
But you're not looking to invest, you're just looking for advice.
An advisor?
Yes.
I think a lot of it just comes from, Marilee, just talking to your friends and seeing who they've used, who they've trusted,
Certain,
and then meet with those people.
Professional
Yes.
accreditations.
Yes,
that
there
you're
are.
looking for?
There are.
There's an organization for finance. I'm not going to give you precisely the words. All these words are in there. Whether they're strung the way I'm going to give them to you, I don't know.
Okay.
But it's the Financial Management Association.
Right.
And you can call the association and you can get a recommendation of a financial advisor. Probably all financial advisors do investments, I would suspect. That's not to say that they're not gonna handle questions and complications, et cetera. You could get a recommendation to answer your question. They must be certified. Obviously, they want them to be certified. Another one is they're bonded or whatever the insurance they have behind them. But they're a wonderful organization. We can give you the contact information of that place offline, and I'm happy to share that with you.
Thank you.
And again, it's a similar process. You'll get a list, you'll want to talk to them, and they have them nationwide. So in fact, I think it's a global organization, but you can get a short list from them as to people who might be
But
able to
that's not
talk to.
necessarily state specific, you can use maybe your financial
Yes,
advisor.
use someone here.
I mean, any good one would be able to research the laws of the state, but you don't.
I mean, it's
You don't have
amazing
to
to
be-
me how many people we know have accounts that live on the other side of the country, financial advisors, now that we're, so, Skype, whatever. I mean, it doesn't have to be someone that's necessarily local.
But they should be fiduciaries, they should have your
Yes.
interest at
Well,
heart.
that's what I'm getting at.
Absolutely.
As opposed to trying to sell me a product.
So it's
That's
Right,
what I'm
like
looking
fee for
for.
service.
Yeah, fee for service.
Yeah, start with your own.
Oftentimes through the bank, you can also get
It's another
someone,
great
to go
suggestion.
through your local bank. But it's a scary process.
Like Wells Fargo has a separate section for financial advisors. Bank of America does the same thing. That's an option.
One other source of information, especially if it's a person without a lot of resources, is the Area Agency on Aging can recommend.
Oh, yeah,
Great.
definitely.
There are
Great,
also
great.
there are people who do this, retired people who do this gratis. I know a guy here in Montgomery County who set it up for and he works with very low income people to help them. I don't know if that exists everywhere. My question though is, how young do you start? I'm thinking about a couple of things. We talked before about whether, and I'll be interested in your thoughts, whether this kind of presentation would be something that our younger members might find useful, but also something that we would recommend, for example, to the Young Dems, some of the other Dem clubs, but how young do you find that people are ready to hear this?
There have been some articles recently, I think the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, that address the same question. And most people recommend that at age 18, when kids are leaving for college, their parents are opening up their first checking account or perhaps a savings account. They have some, independent financial decisions that they're going to be making. So either at that junction or perhaps when they get their first job. So again, it depends, personally in terms of each family. But it's never too early to start getting you're not necessarily fill out every component because your life isn't that full yet, but it's a great way to start getting into that habit.
Thank you.
Marilee,
If I could add to that, one of the things that's occurring now with this digital age is filing things like in paper and putting them, it's basically non-existent to the younger age. And so it's actually even more critical to be able to start storing and thinking where these accounts are, because quite often they'll say, okay, this is the account of the day, and then a year later you're into some other thing, and now you have a different email, and you have 5 or 6 emails, and before you know it, you have no idea where any of this is stored, and they don't think about it. It's not even a consideration about filing and organizing, and so I think it's critical at this stage to start thinking about it, even if they don't implement it. But it's never too early.
It's interesting, when Marilee and I first started out, we did not have a paper copy because you can download the paper copies off our site. And we also have the flash drive. And we had met with a group of young women in New York, a bunch of young professional women, and they wanted a hard copy. They wanted to be able to put their hands on it. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to use the digital aspect as well, but they wanted to put their hands on it, which we thought was very interesting. And from that conversation, we ended up coming up with a hard copy of our product.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was wondering, is it, back to beneficiaries, is it just too pat to say that beneficiaries are, when I'm trying to locate and update mine, a will, a trust, and insurance, so that's the only 3 things that I need to locate for beneficiaries, or are there other things out there that I need to look at? IRAs, maybe?
Yeah, I would start with,
Investments?
you gotta start with your bank accounts, make sure those are, just go to your local bank. You wanna look at your retirement accounts, your, investment accounts. You wanna really look at everything to make sure that everything lines up and everything's titled correctly as well.
And anything that has money involved with it,
I think that's probably
money.
the good,
Yeah.
that's probably a good way to think about it,
Mhm.
is if it's driven by money, somebody's gotta have it be inherited, that's a great start point. There might be something on the edges, but that gets you
No, not
started.
mortgage.
And if you set up a living trust,
That's
you
a
just make the
liability.
living
There
trust
you
your
go.
Right,
beneficiary
yes.
of everything.
There you go.
And and I have to say, it is time consuming. I mean, just going to Capital One, I thought both my daughters' names are on our checking savings account. And I found that only one child was on each one. And it took me probably an hour and a half, 2 hours to have them do it. But it was worth getting this done now.
Bank of America required Ryan to be there to do it, when we put him on the accounts. Go figure, why did they do that? Yeah. You had a question?
Yeah, you've given us a good overview of what's in your system. Can you give us a little better idea of how you stepwise go through the process if we were to engage you to help us?
There are 2 ways to think about it. One, you can purchase the organizer. It is a do-it-yourself. It's so easy to do. Most people think, oh my gosh, we need Marilee and Robyn to come help us. That is actually not the case. We're happy there. We give it to you. Part of our time. We'll help you. Whatever you want to do, we'll tell you free of charge. You could do it yourself. You may have questions along the way, and we're available in person, by chat, if you don't want to see us or hear us. It's all no problem. You got it all covered. You don't have to even listen to us. Or you can be, as Ricky's friend was, unable or just not wanting to do it, like Fran, and decide that you want us to come help you either get started, do it for you, or you may have your own personal organizer who helps do, organize other parts of your life. You might want to give it to them. Either, any situation we can do, but I will tell you that it is, and a good organizer should be easy for you to do. If you have to pay somebody each time to go do something, you might want to think about how easy that is for you to keep it up to date. So it's easy enough to do yourself. But again, we're here for you.
You want to see what it looks like?
Sure.
Okay, so
So we'll end by just saying thank you very much for
Absolutely.
this wonderful opportunity.
thank you.
I think we'll thank you right back. I mean, I really meant what I said in the little blurb. Information is power, whether it's political information, financial information, information about living your life independently, and this is great.
We enjoyed it.
You know, it's been a very interesting journey for the two of us as we've gone through this. As I think I said initially, we had both just retired. I was with Montgomery County for 42 years. Marilee was with the government and headed up a major organization. And we just decided it was an important thing for us to do. And as we spoke to our friends and other women, they said, well, this is something I really need to do. And again, I'd rather go out for a jog than do some of this stuff. But it really has, I know, changed my life dramatically. So it's been interesting. It's been a lot of fun. And having daughters, it's been critical too that they really take charge and are knowledgeable about what really their lives are comprised with. So this is what we did. And we've gone through many configurations. It took us a couple years to do it. And it's a notebook so that everything is merely talked about. Everything's in one place. And the state of mind organizer, we kind of got a sense of what our logo is. That, out of confusion and chaos, you get to that brass ring and everything's kind of smooth and organized. As you look at our book, and we tried to make it as consistent and holistic as this is what Marilee was talking about, and everything that you see is populated on this flash drive. We had looked at having one of those flash drives that are encrypted, thank you, but both of us forget everything, and so if you forget your password for an encrypted flash drive, you lose everything, so that clearly did not work for us. And what we did was we divided, as you know, into the 6 sections.
Can I just jump in? If you use a password protector, you can find the password. Is it possible to encrypt that flash drive?
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So
You'd be saving it to an encrypted flash drive is a different.
Oh, it's different
So you
technology.
would just save it. All you do is just copy save to it.
Got it.
Yes.
So what we did with each section, and they all function the same, because you don't want to have to go to financial and go, oh my God, what do I do with this section, as opposed to another section. And what we did is, you can see they're hyperlinked, so if you were doing it online, you could hyperlink. And it gives you an outline of what's covered in this section.
And importantly, what are the key documents or decisions that have to be considered in that section. You don't have to worry about thinking that you need a durable power of attorney, it's in here. And if you don't know the difference Robyn's gonna get to, there's a glossary here that helps you with the terms.
So, this starts the conversation. And again, you can choose to start with whatever section you want. Many people start with personal, because it's personal, and it's an easy thing to, record what your driver's license information is and your passport, etc. And so, it sounds crazy, but we probably spent 3 weeks deciding how much space we wanted to provide. Because we really only want you to drill down to what's essential. We don't want you to write a tome, we just want you to write down what is essential. So with this section, and they all function the same way, we ask you for information. We
Or-
give you,
And you have two choices. You can either provide the information or say where it is. So if you like the passwords in a manila envelope underneath the mattress in the guest room, you just say passwords in the yellow envelope
In
in
the
the
guest
guest room underneath the mattress. You don't have to sit there and fill them
No.
all out. Or you can highlight your password manager. You can do that for anything that's in here because the option is to record it or just to say where it is.
and then we left space for notes in every section because we think these are essential elements, there might be something else that you want to add to each document. So there's notes, and then with everything else, there's supplemental, so that you can get an extra copy if you want to have another sheet. Maybe you are the caregiver for some family member, and you want to make sure you have that information recorded as well. So each section goes the same way, and then at the end of every section, there is what we call a notes sheet, because maybe, just maybe, you have something else that you need to say. So with every section, there's a note section if you want to include something additional. And then again, it follows the same suit where you have your itinerary of what's important, what's essential in that area. And again, it's hyperlinked if you're going to do it via the computer or flash drive. And then it has the information. And again, you're going to drill down to what's essential. There's notes and there's a supplemental copy. The other piece that we have is an area for FAQs. I think it was it Francis who was talking to me about their family members, like they can't get them to sit down and really talk about have these conversations. And I said, well, we have examples of dialogue in our FAQs that give you some support and help you address some of the common questions that you might have. We also have a glossary that defines a lot of these terms, and we provide different websites you can go to that are all .gov, nothing that's commercial. If you need additional information, we do update these documents on our website. And then we have, it's called At a Glance, a sheet at the end. I don't know about you, but every time I go away, I drive my children crazy. Don't forget this, don't forget that. Mom, you're not gonna drop dead, the plane's not gonna crash, but I always think, it's possible. So we have a sheet that can drill down again to what's really important before you take off or you do something.
Just an extract of what you might put in
That
there.
you want your children to have. So it's, it's all comprehensive. Now, Marilee said that she scans all this a lot of the information for statements. I don't. I have a transparency, so if it's the insurance paper, I have that document with that insurance right there. I got a statement from the insurance company this week that was asking me for a huge sum of money for an account, and I looked at it and went, oh my God. I pulled out my book, I went to insurance and realized, no, it was accurate. It's an account we're no longer using, but it really did save me a nervous breakdown. So again, being able to just grab and go and have access to it. Marilee, you want to talk
And
about
we
it?
provide just a couple of things to get started in the event you need to get
sorry.
started. We have a starter kit of 10 file folders, and then that envelope I was talking about that you want to put your clear plastic thing in, that's in here. And although we give you a dozen, you can get more of those, but we also give you file labels that are already addressed. There are 99 labels in here that you can just peel off and put onto a folder that address most of the topics. See our digital proxy, he likes these sticky things too. Everybody loves those.
Even though they're not digital.
Even though they're not digital, they like to play with stickers, what can I say?
Exactly.
So you can just peel these off and affix them to your files, and that makes a complete system for us. And then
If you want additional copies, you can download them off our website, or again, you can use this, which has everything that you're seeing.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You can choose to, when Robyn says online, it's not online database online. What it is, you go to our website, you can download these forms, which are PDFs. They're just blank forms. You then have to do something with those. So this system, this flash drive and the hard copy, the flash drive emulates the workbook. It comes as a complete system. So you can't delete worksheets. You can bypass them if you don't have a pet, you don't fill out the pet information, but you can't delete them from the workbook. When you go to the website and you download them, they're all individual. Each one of those worksheets is a separate document. So you can just pick and choose the ones you want, save it to your flash drive we give you, crypted, whatever you want to do.
May I suggest that we call the formal portion of this to a close, because we did tell people 11:30, and then if you are free to stay and people have questions and it's okay with Sarah, we can do that.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to show you quickly, you talked about passwords. We had gotten a call from Kiplinger Financial, Money Smart Women, and they did a whole piece on passwords and what they cited our organization system as something that they recommend for people.
Thank you again.
Where are your cards?
Yes.
Right here. And seriously, if you're willing to stay and people have further questions, I did have one announcement before we close. The call I got, and I apologize for not turning my phone off, but it's good that I didn't, was from Kathleen Connor, who on Jamie Raskin's staff.
Ooh.
If you do not know, Jamie is giving a speech on impeachment on Sunday evening at Cedar Lane. You have to have a ticket. They are free, but you have to go on the web and get a ticket because they can only hold 500 people.
Go to his website,
You can just Google Jamie Raskin Cedar Lane.
You can also go to our Facebook, WDC Facebook page, has the advertisement.
What time?
7. I heard a piece of that speech at a fundraiser last weekend, and my husband came away saying, "Oh my God, I understand it now." And it was so, you all know Jamie, I don't need to sell him. But if you want to do that, you should get a ticket today, because there are only 200 left.
Sunday night.
Sunday night.
He's a constitutional attorney, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a constitutional law professor.
Right.
Yeah, he loves to explain this.
And he's so good at it.
He is actually.
Well, thank you
My
so much.
Thank you.
pleasure, thank you.